It was just another day at Reev Automotive, or so it seemed. The lot was busy with shiny new cars, eager customers, and polished salesmen flashing their best smiles. But for Daniel Reev, the owner, it was anything but ordinary. Disguised in a hoodie and jeans, with his baseball cap pulled low, he was ready to go undercover at his own dealership. But Daniel didn't know it yet. This was going to be a day that would change everything. The air was cool as Daniel walked onto the lot. The glass-walled showroom gleamed in the morning sun, but as soon as Daniel stepped inside, the tension in the air was palpable. The staff was busy, but something felt off. He stood quietly near the back, blending in as just another average customer, looking for a car. His eyes scanned the room, looking for anything suspicious, anything that might explain the complaints he'd been hearing about shady deals and unfair sales tactics. His heart beat faster as he approached a salesman, trying to keep his voice casual. "I'm looking for something reliable, maybe a used car, nothing too fancy." The salesman flashed a smile, showing just the right amount of enthusiasm. "Of course, sir. Let me show you some great options." Daniel followed him, keeping his head down, but his senses were on high alert. As they walked past the rows of cars, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The salespeople were too eager, too smooth. Was it all just a sales pitch, or was there something more sinister going on? That's when he heard it, the words that stopped him cold. From behind him, Daniel could hear two voices, low but sharp. His instincts kicked in. He didn't turn around. He couldn't let anyone know he was the owner, but the conversation had caught his attention immediately. "You think he's going to buy it?" one voice whispered, barely audible over the sound of engines and car doors opening and closing. "I don't know," the second voice responded, "but I heard he's got deep pockets. If he buys this one, we're making a killing. It's all about the upsell. Get him into the financing. Get him hooked." Daniel's blood ran cold. Financing? Upselling? He didn't want to believe it, but his gut told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't just about selling cars. It was about manipulation, deception, and something much darker. The first voice continued, "You know how it works. Get the guy to sign, then sneak in all those fees. Warranty, insurance, extra add-ons. They won't even know until they're stuck with it." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. They were talking about customers. They were talking about him. He was the target. "I think he's here to make a deal," the second voice said with a smirk. "And once we get him in, we're making sure he doesn't walk out without signing that paper." Daniel's pulse was racing. He knew he had to do something. But revealing his identity now would ruin the whole plan. He had to play it cool, observe, and gather more information. He let the salesman lead him to a used car, a sleek, black sedan. It wasn't a bad car, but it wasn't exactly what Daniel was looking for. He had seen a car he liked earlier, but that wasn't the point now. He needed to confront these salesmen. He needed to know if they were taking advantage of customers or if this was just a one-off situation. "Let me take a look at the papers," Daniel said, his voice steady. The salesman handed him the documents, and Daniel's eyes scanned the fine print quickly. There it was. Hidden fees, extra charges for insurance, and unnecessary warranties. This was the exact scam the voices behind him were talking about. Before Daniel could speak, the second salesman walked over, grinning. "I think you'll love this car. Great deal, great price. The financing options are flexible, and we've got a special offer just for you." Daniel glanced at the salesman, his gaze sharp. "I don't need the financing. I'll pay outright. What's the real price?" The salesman's smile faltered for a moment. before he recovered, trying to mask his discomfort with a smooth voice. Of course, sir, but with a purchase this size, we do recommend some of our additional services. You'll be covered for the long term. That's when Daniel realized just how deep this went. It wasn't just about the cars. It was about pushing customers into a corner, making them feel like they needed the upsell to make a good deal. Daniel stood up from the desk. I don't need any extras. I want the truth, the price, no tricks. The salesman hesitated, then shifted uncomfortably. It's all standard practice, sir. We just want to make sure you get the best deal for your car. You won't regret it. But Daniel wasn't backing down. I said no, just give me the real price. The salesman's face tightened. He looked around, as if expecting someone to intervene. But no one did. The tension in the air grew thicker. Daniel was done pretending. Let me speak to your manager, he said, his voice cold and firm. Moments later, the manager appeared, a tall man with a tight smile and a sharp suit. His handshake was firm, but Daniel could see the nervousness in his eyes. The manager had probably heard the whispers about the anonymous customer who was causing a stir in the dealership. I'm Daniel Reev, Daniel said, his voice low. And I own this dealership. The manager froze for a moment, his face going pale. The salesman behind him stepped back, his expression turning from smug to alarmed. You're the owner? The manager stammered, clearly caught off guard. Yes, I am, Daniel replied, his gaze hardening. And I just overheard your staff discussing how they manipulate customers with hidden fees and unnecessary add-ons. You're taking advantage of people. I know exactly what's going on here. The manager opened his mouth, but no words came out. His face was a mixture of panic and disbelief. That's not true, sir. It is true. Daniel cut him off. I've been listening, I've been watching, and I've been taking notes. The people you're exploiting are the ones who built this dealership. You don't get to ruin their lives for a quick profit. The manager's eyes darted nervously. I don't know what you're talking about. This is just standard business. Standard business? Daniel snapped. What you're doing is fraud, and it stops now. Daniel's voice echoed through the showroom, and the staff fell silent, watching the confrontation unfold. For the first time, they were hearing the truth. Daniel turned to the staff. You have two options. Either you change the way you do business, or I shut this place down and rebuild it from the ground up. The choice is yours. But as Daniel was about to walk out of the showroom, the door slammed open with force. A man in a suit stormed in, his expression full of fury. Daniel Reev, I need to speak with you, now. Daniel froze. The man's face was unfamiliar, but his aura screamed danger. The man walked toward him with purpose, stopping only when they were face to face. I'm Michael Langford, the man said coldly, and I'm here to take you down. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Langford, his biggest rival. You've made a lot of noise, Reev. But now you've crossed the line, Langford said, his voice dripping with malice. This little moral crusade of yours, it's over. Daniel's mind raced. He knew Langford wasn't the type to back down, and now it seemed like the real fight was just beginning. The words hit Daniel like a hammer. I'm Michael Langford, and I'm here to take you down. Langford's voice was sharp, dripping with venom. Daniel's heart skipped a beat as he processed the name. Langford. Michael Langford. The owner of Langford Motors, his biggest competitor, and a man who had always played dirty. Daniel had never been one to back down from a challenge, but this was different. Langford's presence alone seemed to fill the room with a heavy, palpable tension. What's this about, Langford? Daniel asked, his voice steady but with a hint of uncertainty. Michael Langford didn't hesitate. I've been watching you, Reev, for a long time. And what you've been doing, parading around like you're some sort of hero exposing the truth, it's all a front. You're nothing but a scammer, trying to fool your customers into thinking you're better than the rest of us. Daniel's mind raced. He had suspected Langford might retaliate, but this was more than he had bargained for. Langford's aggressive approach didn't just stem from business rivalry. It was personal. Langford had always resented Daniel's rise in the industry. He had always believed he was the rightful leader, the one who could manipulate the game the way he wanted. Daniel's refusal to play the same way had always been a thorn in his side. And now, it seemed Langford had finally decided to do something about it. "You're wrong, Langford," Daniel said, his voice colder now, the tension rising between them. "What I'm doing here isn't a front. It's about honesty, transparency, and trust. You've built your empire by lying to people, and now you want to tear mine down because I'm exposing the truth." Langford smirked, a smug, self-satisfied grin plastered across his face. "Oh, I know all about your little truth, Reev. You've been taking advantage of your customers just like everyone else. You're just not as good at hiding it. You've got employees talking behind your back, customers telling me stories, and now you've got the nerve to try to act like you're the good guy." Daniel's stomach tightened. What was he talking about? He had worked hard to build Reev Automotive on integrity, not lies. But Langford was a master at spinning stories. He had always been able to twist the narrative to fit his agenda. And Daniel was about to find out just how far Langford was willing to go to protect his reputation. Suddenly, Langford's demeanor shifted. His eyes darkened, and he leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper. "I'm giving you one last chance, Reev," he said, his words laced with a dangerous edge. "Either you back off or I'll make sure your dealership is finished. And when I'm done with you, no one will remember your name. Not your honesty, not your integrity, just the ruins of your failed empire." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. Langford wasn't just playing with business tactics now. He was playing with something far more dangerous. This wasn't a threat he could simply brush off. Langford had the means, the power, and the ruthlessness to destroy him, and he wasn't afraid to use them. Before Daniel could respond, Langford turned on his heel and headed for the door. But as he reached it, he stopped and looked back over his shoulder, his eyes gleaming with a sinister satisfaction. "I almost forgot, Reev," Langford said, a mocking smile curling at the corners of his lips. "You might want to check your own backyard before you start pointing fingers at mine. I hear some interesting things are going down at your dealership. You might want to get ahead of it before it gets out of control." Daniel's blood ran cold. What did he mean by that? Langford had just thrown a bombshell and walked away, leaving a trail of unanswered questions in his wake. Daniel stood there for a moment, his mind racing as the reality of Langford's threat settled in. Was Langford bluffing? Or was there something he knew that Daniel didn't? He had to find out. Now the next few days were a blur for Daniel. He spent every waking moment at the dealership, poring over records, talking to employees, and reviewing security footage. His gut told him that Langford's warning wasn't just a threat. It was a warning. Something was wrong at Reev Automotive, and Langford knew exactly what it was. One evening, as the dealership began to close for the night, Daniel was alone in his office, going over the financial reports once again. But this time, something caught his eye. A small discrepancy in the inventory logs, a series of missing cars. Not just any cars, but high-end, luxury vehicles that were supposed to have been sold months ago. His heart raced as he dug deeper. The cars hadn't just been sold, they had been shipped to a different location, an undisclosed address. Daniel had no idea who could be involved, but it was clear that someone at his dealership was selling cars under the table. A sudden thought struck him. What if Langford wasn't bluffing? What if he already knew about the scam? Determined to find the truth, Daniel contacted his head of security, Jake. "I need you to track down every vehicle that's gone missing in the past month," Daniel said, his voice urgent. "And I need you to do it quietly. No one can know what we're looking for." Jake agreed without question and set to work immediately. Daniel's gut told him that whatever they found would be much worse than he anticipated. Hours later, Jake returned to Daniel's office, a grim look on his face. "I've found something," Jake said, his voice low. "You were right. Cars were sold off. But there's something else. The paperwork was forged, and the cars were transferred to a location that's, well, it's connected to Langford Motors." Daniel's blood ran cold. Langford was involved? Jake continued. "There's more. The person who signed off on the paperwork, it's someone inside your team, someone you trust." Daniel's mind was spinning. Who could it be? He had trusted everyone in his company. His employees were like family. But now, it seemed that one of them had betrayed him. Jake handed Daniel a folder with the names of several employees involved. "I think it's time for you to have a little chat with some of your staff, don't you?" Daniel nodded, his face pale. He knew what had to be done. The following morning, Daniel called in his top employees for a meeting. The room was tense and the silence was deafening as everyone took their seats. The weight of the moment hung in the air. Daniel knew that someone in this room had been working with Langford. But who? As the meeting began, Daniel wasted no time. "I know what's been going on," he said, his voice cutting through the silence. "I know about the missing cars, and I know that someone in this room has been working with Langford Motors to steal from me." Everyone in the room shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. "Jake, bring him in," Daniel ordered. A few moments later, one of his employees, Ben, walked into the room, his face pale. Ben was a trusted member of the team, someone who had worked with Daniel for years. But now, as he stood before Daniel, his guilt was palpable. "Ben," Daniel said, his voice firm but calm, "you've been selling cars behind my back." For Langford, Ben's face twisted in disbelief. "What? No, that's not—" Daniel interrupted. "Don't lie to me. The paperwork is all here. Your name is on it. The cars were sold, and you were paid for it. Why?" Ben hesitated, his eyes darting around the room. Finally, his shoulders slumped. "I was trying to help my family," he muttered, his voice barely audible. "Langford promised me money. He said he could help me pay off my debts, help me get back on my feet. I didn't think it would go this far." Daniel's heart sank. This wasn't just about money. It was about desperation, about someone feeling like they had no other choice. "You betrayed me," Daniel said quietly. "You betrayed all of us. But it's not too late to fix this." Ben's face was a mixture of shame and regret. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get this far. I didn't know who I was dealing with." Daniel nodded. "It's over now, Ben. You're done here." As Ben was escorted out, Daniel felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. This was the last thing he had ever wanted, to lose someone he trusted. But in this business, betrayal was always just around the corner. As Ben left the room, Daniel sat down, his mind racing. Langford had played him, manipulated his own employee into doing his bidding. But it wasn't over yet. This was just the beginning. Langford was out there watching, waiting for his next move. Suddenly, Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an anonymous message. It was a text from Jake. "Langford's not finished with you yet. He's got more than just cars. He's coming for your reputation. Prepare yourself." Daniel stared at the message, his heart pounding. What did Langford have planned now? And more importantly, could he stop him in time? The text from Jake had hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. "Langford's not finished with you yet. He's got more than just cars. He's coming for your reputation. Prepare yourself." The words echoed in his mind. What could Langford have up his sleeve now? For the past few days, Daniel had been consumed with the discovery of the theft and the betrayal of his trusted employee, Ben. But now, with Langford's cryptic warning hanging over him, he couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. He sat alone in his office, his hands gripping the sides of his chair, trying to steady his thoughts. He'd spent years building Reev Automotive, transforming it from a small dealership into a respected brand known for its transparency, fairness, and integrity. But now, it seemed like everything he had worked for was at risk of being torn down in an instant. The walls of his office, once a symbol of his success, now felt suffocating. The sleek cars on the lot outside were a reminder of how far he had come. But the threat from Langford loomed like a shadow over everything he had built. A visit from Langford's shadow. The next morning, as Daniel arrived early to the dealership, his phone buzzed again. This time, it was from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old warehouse at 9 a.m. Langford's going to make you an offer you can't refuse." Daniel's stomach twisted. The fact that the message came from an anonymous source only made him more uneasy. But there was no choice. He had to find out what Langford was planning. He drove to the location without hesitation. The warehouse was tucked away on the outskirts of the city, far from the hustle of the dealership. As he pulled into the empty lot, the only sound was the hum of his engine. Daniel stepped out of his car, scanning the area. The air was thick with tension. The warehouse loomed in front of him, its broken windows and rusted doors a stark contrast to the shiny cars in his dealership. He pushed open the heavy door and stepped inside. The smell of dust and neglect filled his nose, and the dim lighting made the place feel even more ominous. "Daniel," a voice called out from the shadows. It was Langford. He was sitting at a desk in the far corner of the room, his posture relaxed, but his eyes were cold and calculating. The air between them crackled with hostility. Daniel approached cautiously. "What is this about, Langford? I've had enough of your games." Langford leaned back in his chair, the faintest smirk tugging at the corners of his mouth. "It's not a game, Reev. It's business, and I've got a proposition for you." He slid a folder across the desk. Consider it a chance to save face. Daniel raised an eyebrow but didn't take the folder. "What's in it?" Langford's eyes gleamed. "Everything you've been trying to protect, your reputation, your company, your future. You can walk away with it all intact if you agree to a deal." Daniel felt a knot tighten in his chest. A deal? What kind of deal? Langford leaned forward, his voice dropping to a low whisper. "You and I both know that business isn't just about being honest. It's about winning. I can help you win, Daniel, but it'll cost you." Daniel shook his head, frustration mounting. "I've already told you I'm not playing your game." Langford's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. "Oh, but you are. The real question is, do you want to win without compromising your values, or do you want to play it safe and watch everything crumble around you?" Daniel's fists clenched. He could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of Langford's words hanging over him. But as much as Langford tried to play the puppet master, Daniel knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to let him destroy everything he had built. "No deal," Daniel said firmly, standing up. "I won't sell out. Not to you. Not to anyone." Langford's smirk faltered for a moment, but then he leaned back in his chair, as if the outcome didn't matter to him. "Fine, but don't say I didn't warn you." Back at Reev Automotive, Daniel tried to shake off the unease that had taken root in his chest. He had rejected Langford's offer, but something felt different now. The dealership wasn't just at risk from outside threats. There were cracks forming within the company itself. He called a meeting with his leadership team that afternoon. It was time to take control and make sure that Langford's games didn't have the chance to derail his hard work. As the team filed into the conference room, Daniel took a deep breath. "We've been through a lot in the past few days, but now we have to face what's really going on in this company." His eyes swept across the room, meeting the gaze of each of his employees. He could see the uncertainty in their eyes, the fear that Langford's retaliation had already begun to sink in. "We're not going to let this man ruin everything we've worked for," Daniel continued. "We're going to rebuild. We're going to protect our reputation, and we're going to do it the right way. And that means no more secrets, no more lies. We're going to be transparent with our customers and with each other." The room was silent for a moment, but then Jake, the head of security, spoke up. "What do you need from us, Daniel?" Daniel smiled, a sense of calm washing over him. "I need all of you to stand with me. I need you to be honest with me and with each other. We've built this company on trust, and that's what we're going to rebuild. Our trust in each other and in our values." As the meeting continued, Daniel could feel the energy shifting. The tension that had hung over the room began to dissipate, replaced by a shared sense of purpose. They were going to turn this around, together. Later that night, as Daniel sat in his office, the lights dimmed around him. He reflected on everything that had happened. Langford's threats, the betrayal from Ben, the mounting pressure to compromise. It had all been a test, one that Daniel had barely passed. But it wasn't just about business anymore. It was about doing the right thing, even when the world seemed to be conspiring against him. He looked out the window, the lights from the dealership parking lot casting a soft glow over the empty cars. For the first time in days, Daniel felt a sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Langford wasn't going to stop, and there would be more challenges to face. But Daniel knew one thing: he wasn't alone. He had his team, and together they could weather any storm. With a sigh, he leaned back in his chair. The dealership might have been through a storm, but the sun was beginning to peek through the clouds. It was time to rebuild, stronger and more united than ever before.